Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:32. This is the regular meeting of the Municipal Council for the month of March. And second item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Councillor Snail, I believe you're on the motion.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morale, the Municipal Council approves the agenda as presented.
Those in favor of the motion, please signify. Motion is carried. And item 3 on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures here this evening?
I have two, 8I and 8J, and Rebecca has the proper report there. All right.
Okay, and the nature of the disclosures.
8I, my husband's employed by one of the bidding companies, and 8J is I live on that street and prefer not to take part.
Okay, and so the minutes will reflect on. And so then item 4 on the agenda is delegations and presentations. We do have a presentation here this evening from the Spencerville Mill Foundation, and it's Sandra Ketchum.
Right now?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Is it easier if I stand?
Up to you. Would you like the podium?
No, I don't need a podium. But just so I can see you and you can see me instead of being hidden. First of all, thank you for considering our request and allowing me this opportunity to perhaps persuade you what a great request it is. And as you know, you have assisted the Spencerville Mill and Museum often in the past, so we're hoping that trend will continue. So I don't have a formal presentation. I'll keep it pretty short, and you can ask me any questions you feel are necessary. One thing I wanted to point out is that this year, once our season starts, we're really trying to build on more outreach for the mill as both an historic mill and the museum, which has dramatically improved over the last year or so with new exhibits and new ideas for how we can interest people in local heritage, in the mill itself, of course, but also the founding families from this region. So the money ask that we have in front of you is very much has a heritage base this year. It has a sort of continuum of that expanding and promoting and strengthening the heritage theme at the mill. As you can see, we've asked for $1,000 for boring old sewage, or sewer services, and general operating. Well, operating is of course terribly important, and they certainly don't have a heritage theme. The rest of the requests that we have before you, for a total of $2,650, is really to strengthen the heritage part of what I'll just explain in a sec. We are putting an ad and some of our event listings in 2 visitor guides this year, the Brockville and Thousand Islands visitor guide and the South Grenville visitor guide. The Brockville guide will print 50,000 copies, and the South Grenville visitor guide will have a print run of 10,000. So we're expanding on the mill presence in that way. But then we also felt that an important component would be an updated version of an existing mill rack card. And I think, does everyone know what a rack card is? You know, the little kind of cardboardy rack cards that you can put wherever there are holders for such things. So you see them in libraries, in many different locations, and they kind of stay there, and visitors or local people also can just pick them up. So what we're doing is a new generic rack card about the mill, and it's actually going to look really attractive, of course, and it will have a header of our heritage mill and museum. in keeping with that heritage theme, but the other part of it will be boosting what we do today to keep the mill alive and to make it of interest to more people. So we are asking for, and that rack card, we'll print 5,000 copies of it. The bulk of that 5,000 copies will be distributed by Brockville Tourism to a number of different sites, and they are highlighted here. There'll be about 500 cards distributed in Brockville, and the rest will go to a broader area from Lancaster to Gananoque and north to Westport, delivering to hotels, inns, campgrounds, marinas, gas stations, truck stops, and being given to special events and festivals in Leeds, Grenville. So it's a good distribution, and we will also, through the mill, ourselves distribute those rack cards more locally in Spencerville, in Campville, South Mountain, Manotick, all of those places. And another thing we're going to do with this rack card, which strangely we haven't done before, is that we're going to have quantities at the 2 other historic mills that are more or less in this area. Watson's Mill in Manotick and the mill in Delta. So what you can see is that we're really making an effort to get ourselves, to have this mill become better known. So about 2,500 rack cards will go to Brockville Tourism for that distribution, and another 2,500 we will be actively putting right around here and through to Manotick and in the 3 mills that are known as heritage mills. Do you need me to itemize the cost of our ask there specifically? Design and printing is $365 and distribution is $185. So that ask is $550 total. We're actually very excited about this rack card. I have an initial design, and I've written some text which combines the new and has a very short list of our events, plus a little bit of history is written up onto the back part of the rack card as well. And continuing with that heritage theme, I think a number of you saw the quilt show, the quilt exhibit that Sheila actually organized last year at the mill. I thought it was absolutely fabulous, and so did anybody else who saw it. And the thing that it emphasized to us after we ourselves saw it in place was that is one of our primary mandates at the mill and in the events that we do. That combination of showing the riches of the past, highlighting the past with the help of local people, but having a contemporary event, getting people now to look back and enjoy their heritage and this particular heritage. So this year we want to do a heritage toys exhibit. And so if anybody here has some heritage toys, it'll be from the 1930s through to about 1990. So it was kind of interesting looking at that spectrum of what toys could be part of heritage toys, even though, do all of us remember Transformers? And that was well, Barbie dolls were 1959. Transformers, I think, were, yes, they're still going. Transformers were about 1970, and then there was the impact of films like Star Wars with all those toys, Darth Vader and the whole bit that came up there. So it's an amazing spectrum, although we're hoping, of course, that that we'll get a lot of really old toys, trikes, just things that amuse kids from as far back as we can go. Now, at the same time, as the toy exhibit, we want to really boost up something called Vintage Carnival for families, for kids and families. Last year's was not that successful, and we've done this several times over the summer. I think this might be about the 4th time we will be doing it. But because really didn't get enough people out last year, we felt that combining it with the Heritage Toys would really give it a lot more interest. And we want to have better entertainment as part of Vintage Carnival. It's a very low price. It's usually around $5 for a family of up to 5 people. We sometimes say 5 for 5. So some adults and kids, 5 of whatever, can get in for $5. So this ask is really about boosting the Vintage Carnival, which will also boost the toy exhibit, but we're not asking for funds specifically to do the toy exhibit, because it is part of our mandate as a museum as well as a mill. A mill where you can have events and tours and that kind of thing. So that could, what we want to do to further promote this event is have enough money to do a magazine ad and ideally an ad on local radio stations, which we haven't done very much, if ever. But you can get some really good rates, and they'll keep repeating the fact that this is happening on local radio. So we'd really like to boost the outreach that way. And of course, we'll have posters all over the place about this. And then finally, in terms of an event, this isn't really a heritage event. As a lot of you know, because you have come to it, we know you've come, Mr. Mayor, the event we call An Affair with Food and Drink at the Mill, we're doing for the 3rd year. We feel that if we do an event, a special event that we have created, that we need to do it 3 times before we really evaluate it. Is it successful? Can we build on it? Will people come? And all of those issues. Last year, again, we had a disappointment with this event. It was our 2nd time, and it was a blistering hot day. And we do, even though it was toward the end of September, it was one of those, I don't, was anybody there?
I was.
It was really hot, wasn't it? The first year, the weather was absolutely perfect, as September weather often is, and so we had a really good start. Then the disappointment that, for whatever reason, so we really want to make this year's An Affair with Food and Drink as special as we can. We're starting much earlier. We've already put out a call for vendors. We're inviting more vendors than we've ever had before. And we really feel this event is improved by music. Not vocal, not sitting and listening to a band kind of music, but just background music, which just gives the event a really nice feel, and just kind of makes the atmosphere even nicer. Because an event at the Mill is always a really nice place to have an event. You know, that whole heritage environment and the artifacts that are around, and the fact that people can wander and look at the exhibits at the same time. So we think that anybody who's come to this event so far has really enjoyed it. And we're just trying to put a lot more effort into it this year and make it as successful as we can. So we're asking for $300 to assist with live music by a local musician. So that's really what our ask is all about, and I leave you with that for your consideration, and I just wonder if anyone has any specific questions or...
So what was the total ask
The total ask
in your application?
is $2,650,
Right.
$1,000 of which is for sewer services and operating.
Okay, so the sewer, do we regard that as
Sewer
income?
services and general
Oh,
operating.
okay, so we regarded that as part of the cash. Yeah, we've been supporting it, the mill in the past. What level were we supporting at it in the past?
I don't have the file in front of me, but I believe we've been generally providing them with cash to offset their sewer charge.
Yeah.
as well as significant amount of square footage in this building for storage, as well as staff time at events and access to the photocopier. As with all the applications, we'll have a detailed list for you. Mrs. Ketchum is here because our policy says that if you're asking for more than 2,000, you must make a presentation.
Okay. Others have questions here? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there's always been this, what do you call it, pet peeve of mine. We always tend to have things, and I don't know how you get around it, because there's such a short timeline between summer and fall and good weather, and you know, winter runs 9 months a year. But everybody seems to be having events at the same time as, you know, like they have it in Kemble, we have it in Spencerville, or there's something going on, or rekindling of Prescott's Loyalist Days. I don't know how you get around that, but that seems to me a bugaboo about, you know, everybody's kind of taking pieces of the pie at the same time. So, so my question here, when you said about the vintage carnival combined with toys and better entertainment, I put down, when is that proposed to take place? When do you expect that to happen?
That'll be in July.
In July, okay.
We've typically, the last couple of years, we've had it in August, and we feel that it just seems like more families are away in August. And it rained, but then it rained for every event last year. Deluge for those of you who braved some of them. We thought we'd try it in July this year.
Do you have, when you put on these events like the toy exhibit, do you have a goal as to the number of people you'd like to see show up? Like an objective?
Well, we often do. Our original goal for an affair with food and drink, for instance, was that we really hope to get out about 200 people. If the event is at the mill, there are sometimes limitations because upstairs at the mill, the maximum number allowed there is 135, but then with that event, we also have the downstairs. So yes, we do have goals, and certainly, to go back to Vintage Carnival and the toy exhibit, we would hope for, you know, about 100 people, adults and kids. And we have got close to that number on the best years. We find that, and as you said, Councillor, there is always competition, and sometimes the competition is really extreme or really competitive, in the sense that, in particular, last summer, there was so much money around for 150, the celebration in Canada's 150th, and many places that were close to here got a lot more money. I mean, we didn't, in the end, we had applied for grants, but some of them we couldn't accept because it wasn't enough for us to do anything that was going to be better than the surrounding communities that got more money, like Brockville. Remember that big yellow duck and all of that they got, and it was really, and everybody went, or seemed to. Kentville got money, then that, you know, they were able to hold, I think a kind of blues fest or a music festival. So it is competitive, and we're and last year was, as I've already said, even more competitive, and so our events did suffer somewhat. But for something like the Vintage Carnival and Heritage Toys, I think we would expect to really pull in a lot of local families and their friends, and we're trying, if we do the radio ads in particular, we'll be trying for beyond Spencerville, certainly. And if the weather's good, then people do tend to turn out. So.
Anybody else have questions for Mr. Go ahead.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks for your presentation very much. Of course, the events at the mill are always part of the beating heart of the village here.
You're a very good supporter of our events, so we thank you for that.
Absolutely. The Festival of Small Halls, is there anything happening this year? Am I stealing someone's thunder? I'm happy to.
No, we have more or less officially been told that we will once again be part of their lineup
Nice.
through Blues Fest.
Right.
As you know, the concerts have really been terrific there and usually sold out. Not that that gives us much money because it goes back, but it does give us some. And if we have a bar at the same time, that helps, or food.
Gives you exposure.
Yes, it gives us exposure. The mill, it's just that they love coming to the mill, and we love being part of Festival of Small Halls. It's such a great idea. So we don't know the band yet, or the performers, but yes, we are poised to do it again.
Yeah, very nice, and just as the mayor said, if I may, that exposure piece is very important for the mill, so when people, they recognize the name, when they see that rat card when they're in Merrickville, or when they're in, when they're at another location. And it's nice, that's people spending money, at the Village Pantry, or spending money at Drummond's, or at Joe's, or Little Sisters, or what have you. So
Yeah.
it's very, very positive, even if there's not a big take on the door for you folks. It's just great that you're generating a lot of interest with your good stewardship of the mill.
We're glad to hear that. And speaking of Little Sisters and Joe's Spencer City Bar and Grill, they too will be participating in the affair with food and drink. So that kind of gives them a bit of an edge there as well.
Great.
In terms of publicity. Just one more thing, you may be aware of Kentville's Marketplace, which happens every year. One year when we did food and drink, I think in fact it was our first year, it was on, I think, the same weekend as Kentville's Marketplace. So we actually, Mary Tessier did call and sort of inquire as to why we were competing with each other. And they actually changed their date from September last year. They did theirs in August, and I believe they're doing it in August again. So a lot of communities are doing food and drink tastings now.
Yes, they are.
So we are trying to find out when someone else's is happening so that we can have ours on a different date. And what we're also doing this year is changing it from Sunday to Saturday as an event, because some vendors don't like to come on Sunday, and some people don't like to attend a drinking event on Sunday either, so.
Councillor Smale.
I just wanted to pass on my phone number, just so you have it, because I have some vintage toys that you might be
Oh,
interested in. So
yay.
hang on to that, when you're ready, give me a shout,
Great,
okay?
thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So if there are no more questions, I'm going to thank Mr. Ketchum for being here. I'm really glad to see that you're getting into the tourism guides. The two that you've selected are the two best ones. And I know Brockville Tourism will do a good job distribution for you. So I think that that's money well spent. But I guess my worry would be you've got to keep it up year after year after year, because those tourism guides they date themselves pretty quickly.
Yes.
And unless you're there every year, you don't get the impact.
Right.
So anyway, we'll be dealing with your request when we deal with the whole package, which, do we have a date for that? April 9th? That'll be the date on which
Okay.
that we pull all the applications together, and the budget's been approved now, so we know the total amount of money that we've got, and we'll try to make it fit.
Okay.
So
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and we'll see you at our events.
Save some food and drink. Okay, so I'm going on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the approval of various minutes. First is the regular council meeting of February the 26th. Councillor Smale.
Thank you, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morale, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the regular council meeting dated February 26th.
Thank you very much. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And I see we're dealing with business arising at the next item. So I'll call for the minutes of the special meeting held on March the 19th. Councillor Rare.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Smale, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of special council meeting dated March 19, 2018.
Questions, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And so now, item number 6 on the agenda is business arising from those previous council meetings. Is there any business arising? Hearing none, moving on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is the approval of various committee meetings. So first is the Public Library Board, Councilor Morel.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Smale, that the municipal council receives the minutes of the Public Library Board meeting dated January 23rd, 2018.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the table. Questions, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And 7B is the minutes of the Port Management Committee meeting. Councilor Baird.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Smale, that municipal council receives the minutes of Port Management Committee meeting dated February 21, 2018.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the table. Questions, if any? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify. Those motion is carried. Thank you. And 7C, the Benson School Ad Hoc Committee meeting. Councilor Smale.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Morel, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of Benson School Ad Hoc Committee meeting dated February 2020.
Thank you very much. Motion is on the table. Questions, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And the minutes of the public meeting, March the 5th, Councilor Morel.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Smale, that the municipal council receives the minutes of the public meeting for amending the zoning bylaw with respect to hobby farms and domestic fowl dated March 5th, 2018.
Thank you very much. Motion is on the table. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And 7E, the Community Development Committee, Councilor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Morel, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Community Development Committee meeting dated March 5th, 2018.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. Seven F, the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting of March the 6th, Councilor Baird.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Smale, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of Recreation Advisory Committee meeting dated March 6, 2018.
Motion is on the table. Discussion? Hearing none, go ahead.
It says on here, sorry, I'm just trying to locate which one it is, that the summer programming guide has that been printed or is that ready to go yet?
I have not seen it yet.
No, okay, so it's not done. Okay, I was just wondering if it's, I think somebody's at our door.
Is the fire door, this door is open, right?
Figured it.
Okay, so minutes of the meeting of March the 6th. Further discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And 7G, the Committee of the Whole meeting, March the 12th. Councilor Morel.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Smale, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Committee of the Whole Administration and Finance meeting dated March 12th, 2018.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And 7H, the Committee of the Whole Public Works, Councilor Baird.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Smale, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities meeting dated March 19, 2018.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Councilor Morel?
I know the night there was a presentation by some people on Kane Road. I just wonder if we were to follow up, if any initial follow-up has been started, that's all, I know. They're to report back at the next meeting, I know that, some of their concerns.
Yes, through the chair, we have had some initial follow-up.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion, please signify. The motion is carried. Thank you. So now moving on to item 8 on the agenda. Item 8 is the action and information items coming forward from the committees as recommendations from the committees. 8A, the severance application B1418 for Valence. Councilor Morel.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Smale that the municipal council recommend in favor of the severance B-14-18 Valance, conditional upon: 1, the completion of an engineering report prepared by a qualified professional demonstrating that private on-site sanitary services are environmentally sustainable on a lot smaller than 1 hectare. The report should comment on both the lot to be retained and the lot to be severed, including the adjacent property to which it will be merged. Second item, the completion of an EIA prepared by a qualified professional demonstrating that there will be no negative impacts on the natural features or their ecological functions from the severance and future development of the property. The study should confirm the boundary of the wetland and consider all development of the property, including access to the waterfront, as recommended by the Community Development Committee.
Thank you very much. Just had a lot of discussion at the committee meeting. Further discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion, please signify. Motion is carried. And just if I may, question to staff. So the council then is going to recommend in favor of this severance. The severances are conducted by the United Counties. They're the land division agency. I'm assuming that we don't forward the severance application until these two studies are complete, so, and we attach them to the application, or how's it work?
No, actually, what happens is this recommendation will go to the United Counties and we will ask them to impose these conditions, but it's up to the counties to decide if they support this
Oh, I see.
or not.
We're recommending.
We're recommending,
Okay.
yeah, and that's in line with our official plan, which the counties should support.
Yeah, okay, all right. Just a question of process there. And so now, 8B, which is a proclamation for Gift of the Heart Day. Councilor Byrne.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Smale, whereas the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal recognized the importance of supporting the local registered dental hygienists in our communities, and whereas every community experiences members that cannot financially afford basic dental hygiene care, and whereas on April 7, 2018, participating registered dental hygienists across Canada and in the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal will open their hearts and clinics to provide oral health care to the public who may be financially unable to receive dental hygiene care or whom have difficulty accessing dental hygiene treatment, and therefore be it resolved that the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal hereby proclaims April 7, 2018 to be Gift from the Heart Day in Edwardsburg Cardinal.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And then 8C, the business showcase and expo permit. Councilor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Morel, the municipal council supports the business showcase and expo event taking place from June 8th and 10th, 2018 for the special occasions alcohol permit at the Cardinal Ingredient Center as recommended by the Committee of the Whole Administration and Finance.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify. Motion is carried. And 8D, investment of industrial park land sales. Councilor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morale. The municipal council directs staff to transfer the net proceeds of $68,137.73 from the sale of the land in the industrial park, allocated $46,603.29 to the industrial park land reserve, and $15,534.44 to the industrial park wastewater reserve, as recommended by the Committee of Whole Administration and Finance.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. 8E is the Prescott Drinking Water System Report. Councilor Morel.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Smale, that the municipal council receives the Prescott Drinking Water System Report.
And this is the report for 2017, discussed at the Public Works meeting. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify. Motion is carried. And 8F, the Industrial Park Summary Report, Councillor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that municipal council receives the industrial park system report.
Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And 8G, the Cardinal Water Treatment Plant Summary Report, Councillor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morale, that municipal council receives the Cardinal Waste WTP system report. I'm not even gonna try.
Water Treatment Plant Report.
I'm just gonna stutter
Summary
today,
report.
so.
We get these report once a year from each of our systems. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And 8H is the Cardinal Wastewater Treatment Plant Summary Report. Councillor Morel.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Smale, that municipal council receives the Cardinal wastewater treatment.
Seems conscious.
System report.
Some pages, sorry, Gary.
Freudian slip.
Okay. Thank you very much. The motion is on the table. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried.
You didn't table, sir.
So now I'm at 8I, the Crushed Rock Tender Award. Councillor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that municipal council award the supply of crushed rock tender to G. Tackaberry and Sons Construction Company Limited at the unit price of $11.43 per metric ton to a maximum of $85,000, including non-rebated HST, as recommended by Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities.
Thank you very much. Motion is on the table. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor Smale abstaining. And I'm moving then to 8J, which is the Walker Street Rehabilitation Motion. Councillor Morel.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, that municipal council proceed based with option 1 with the intent to complete the full scope of the project for Walker Street, subject to tender results and final council approval as recommended by Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities.
Tough discussion at the public meeting, at the Public Works Committee meeting. But, those in favor, please signify. Motion is carried. Councillor Smale abstaining. And 8K is the Greenergy Support in Principle. Councillor Morel.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Smale that the municipal council approves in principle the proposed Greenergy project, subject to a public consultation process as recommended by the Port Management Committee.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, following the presentation at the Port Committee meeting by the rep from Greenergy, have we heard more with regards to a potential that potential consultation plan?
We had a communication today which indicated that they were hopeful of doing something as early as April the 4th, but it was not a direct communication. It was through CREWS, Canadian Rail Equipment Works and Services, and as far as hearing anything directly, we haven't heard anything directly. But as the CAO pointed out at the meeting, the land is already properly zoned properly zoned in the industrial, the official plan and the zoning plan. So I'm not sure what the proponent is proposing to do because he hasn't shared that with us.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor, please signify. Motion is carried. And 8L, Fraser House, Councillor Smale, and I'd like you to put the motion forward as it is, and then I'm going to ask for an amendment. Go ahead, please.
Okay, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Morale. Whereas the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal is the owner through its Port of Johnstown Business Division of the stone building on Windmill Road, known as the Fraser Home. And whereas council has heard a presentation outlining the historical importance of this structure in the development of the township, and whereas the Port of Johnstown has no further use for the building in regards to its present location as a hindrance to the future development of port uplands. Now therefore be it resolved that the stone structure located at 3202 Windmill Road, known as Fraser House, be gifted to a partnership of the Grenville County Historical Society and the Friends of the Windmill, subject to the memorandum of understanding between the Port of Johnstown, Grenville County Historical Society, and the Friends of the Windmill. That the partnership will raise the necessary funds to have the structure moved to a suitable location no later than December 1st, 2022. And further, that the memorandum of understanding will specify that failure to move the structure within the designated time frame will leave the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal and or Port of Johnstown free to proceed with the building demolition to clear the land for future port development.
Okay, and the motion, the amendment that I'm looking for is to replace the word gifted, and I think it's a friendly amendment, to replace the word gifted so that it would read as follows. The Fraser House be offered as a gift to a partnership of. And the reason I'm saying that is because we have to be sure that the people that we're dealing with are prepared to accept the gift. It's pretty hard to gift somebody something if they don't accept it. So replace the word gifted with the phrase offered as a gift. And I'm putting that forward as a suggestion for an amendment. I can't make the amendment from the chair, and I'd like somebody to move that amendment if they would, please. Councillor Smale moves the amendment, second the amendment, Councillor Morell. Now we're voting just on the amendment to replace the word gifted with offered as a gift. Those in favor of the amendment? That's carried. Now I'm going to put the motion forward as amended. Those in favor of the motion as amended? Thank you very much. Small point. Oh, that's a kind of a bad mess. I'm going to ask the clerk to bear with me. I've made the changes on the wrong form. I'll correct it later. So now I'm on to item number 9, which is the acceptance of the correspondence packages. Councillor Morell.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Smale, that the Municipal Council receives the correspondence listings for the following date as previously circulated: March 5th, 2018, March 12th, 2018.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Then I'm on item number 10 of the agenda, which is approval of the municipal disbursement sheets. Councillor Barrett, we have that motion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morale. The municipal council approves payments of municipal invoices circulated and dated as follows. Report dated February 20th, 2018, $6,706.55. Report dated March 5th, 2018, $312,967.85. Report dated March 9th, 2018, $58,115.55. Report dated March 21st, 2018, $1,846,695.30. Total $2,224,485.25.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor, please signify. Motion is carried. Obviously, we must be sending some money to school boards. So number 11 on the agenda are the bylaws. We have several bylaws tonight, looks like 10. Bylaw 11A, confirmation bylaw from March the 19th. Councilor Morell.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Barrett that a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, in number 2018-12.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Those in favor, please signify. Opposed, if any? Motion is carried, thank you. And 11B, appoint insurance broker of record, Counselor Smail.
By myself, seconded by Councilor Morale, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to appoint an insurance broker for the municipality and that shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
First and second reading to appoint the broker. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Proceed to third reading.
Moved by myself, and seconded by Councilor Morale, that a bylaw to appoint an insurance broker for the municipality be now read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed, number 2018-13.
Third reading. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And 11C is the bylaw for a put-through storage agreement with the Port of Johnstown. Councilor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to authorize the mayor and Port of Johnstown general manager to execute a put-through and storage agreement with Ingredient Canada Corporation, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Lots of discussion at previous meetings. Those in favor, please signify. It's carried unanimously. Proceed to third reading.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Morel, that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and Port of Johnstown general manager to execute a put-through and storage agreement with Ingredient Canada Corporation be now read the third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2018-14.
Thank you very much. Those in favor, third reading. Motion is carried. And 11B is an amend the zoning bylaw, hobby farms and domestic fowl. Councilor Smail.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morale, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2012-35 as amended, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, now, before we vote on this, just remind you that there was some discussion at one of the previous meetings. Councilor Barrett, you wanted to talk about it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, at previous meetings, or there was a public meeting following the recommendation from the CDC. Following that, council received correspondence from a resident about it, and there was further discussion at a committee meeting. Now, is this issue, or is this item agenda to come back before the CDC?
I'll just ask staff how we're gonna proceed here.
The request was, from council, was that a presentation be arranged with respect to this bylaw from potentially OMAFRA or the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. We have reached out to both of those agencies as well as the Poultry Industry Council of Ontario. None of them have the staff or facilities, I guess, to provide a presentation. The Community Development Coordinator, Mrs. McFarland, has been working to try to gather some information. We have heard from OFA, PIC, and OMAFRA that they really don't feel that there's any need for them to be involved, where it's so few birds that they really don't get involved until there are numbers up in the hundreds. The one scientist that Mrs. McFarland spoke to today said she had some concerns and pointed to some research with regard to that. Our sense from the other three agencies is that there's not a great concern, so the research is still underway. Council has the option to either deal with the bylaw tonight and let it go to its appeal period, or request it to go back to committee for further discussion, or however you choose to do that. Certainly the public supports the amendment, but I know there were some concerns with respect to the science, although CDC had certainly reviewed that.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Mayor, my concern with the, I have questions that remain, and I would be interested in the result of the Community Development Coordinator's work. If I'm to understand that it's still in progress, and I would be very interested to read or hear the outcome of that, or hear her report to the CDC or to council before we pass it. But I'm aware that the statutory public meeting was held, and with only one I'm not sure if he was an objector or if he just was a questioner, but there was one gentleman who had some concern there, and he was the one that had communicated with council. So procedurally, I'm not, I don't want to vote against the item just to hold it, so if we can, would we table it?
Well, the thing is, we give it first and second reading and delay third reading. You know, I mean, and we can give it first and second reading and delay third reading by one of two methods. Either we can not be unanimous on first and second, in which case it's automatically delayed, or alternatively, we can give it unanimous approval at first and second, but table third reading to another time. That way, you know, but referring to the second part of your question, the presentation that came up at the public meeting and the subsequent communication, I think, was from somebody that was looking for greater leniency than the committee was recommending. And it was reiterated a couple of times that we realized that there might be room for greater leniency, but we were proposing to start slowly and see what problems, if any, emerge before becoming more lenient with our bylaw. So that sort of puts that in perspective. So and again, it's up to the council here to determine whether they want to go all the way with this tonight, or whether they want to just, you know, give it first and second reading and table third, or not give unanimous approval on first and second. It's up to the table. Further discussion? Hearing none. I'm going to call the question, and I'm going to ask for the recorded vote, just so there's no misunderstanding as to how we've done this. So, Councillor Barrett.
Yay.
Councillor Morell.
Yay.
Councillor Smale.
Yay.
And I'll vote yay. So now it did receive unanimous approval on first and second reading. Now the chair is prepared to entertain a motion to table third reading to another time.
That's so moved.
Okay, so Councillor Barrett moves to table third reading to the next meeting of council. Does he have a seconder? He has a seconder, Councillor Smale. Okay, motion to table is not debatable. Those in favor of tabling to the second, okay, so we have approval to table third reading to the next meeting of council. We've been working on this for quite some period of time, so another month isn't gonna do any harm. So 11E now, I'm on to 11E, which is amend the hiring policy. Councillor Barrett.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Morell that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2015-17, being a bylaw to adopt a hiring policy, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Okay, so the bylaw is not going to get unanimous reading. I'm going to vote against it, and I expressed my concerns at an earlier meeting. This will just hold it up for one meeting, but again, it's a matter of, oh, for the 6th there, I did it again. That goes there. Goes there.
Well, that's, sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's third.
Well, that's third?
That's third. Yeah, I was just giving it to you for your.
Okay, so this is third reading. So it's not going to third
That's
reading,
right.
so that comes out. Okay, so table. Okay, so now where am I here? So now I'm at 11F, which is delegate administrative authority for the ARB appeals. Councillor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morell. The mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to delegate administrative matters with respect to assessment review board to the treasurer and his or her designate. And this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, thank you very much. First and second reading, those in favor? It's unanimous and can proceed to third reading then.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Barrett, that a bylaw to delegate administrative matters with respect to assessment review board to the treasurer and his or her designate be now read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed, number 2018-17.
Thank you very much. Third reading, those in favor? Motion is carried. So now, 11G is to amend the animal control bylaw by imposing a set fine bylaw. Councillor Morel.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2016-85 to regulate the keeping of animals in the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, and so this has been discussed at the committee meeting. The discussion, if any. Hearing none, those in favor, please signify. So that's unanimous approval to proceed to third reading.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 2016-85 to regulate the keeping of animals in the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2018-18.
Third reading, those in favor? Motion is carried. And proceeding now then to 11H, which is amending the clean yards bylaw by imposing a set fine regime. And I think Councillor Barrett, you have that one.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2014-05, clean yards bylaw, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. First and second reading, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, so I just want to, with having set fines in place, I just want to confirm that our bylaw officials still have the exercise of discretion in their first encounter with residents when addressing an issue.
I'm just gonna respond to that. I think that if we weren't confident that our officials are fully capable of recognizing when discretion is required and how to exercise it, we wouldn't be bringing this bylaw forward as a heavy-handed sort of method. And I just asked the CAO to confirm that. Would?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, certainly discretion is very important in law enforcement, whether it's at the municipal level or any other level. And I'm sure that our bylaw enforcement officer will not go crazy issuing tickets.
Thank you.
Okay, so now this is first and second reading. Those in favor? Okay, it's got unanimous approval. Can proceed to third reading.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Morel, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 2014-05, clean yards bylaw, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2018-19.
Third reading, those in favor? Motion is carried. And 11I, which is stop up, close, and convey a road allowance for Mr. Cook. Third and final reading. Councilor Smail.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Barrett that a bylaw to stop, up, close, and convey a road allowance legally described as part of the road allowance between Lot 6 and Lot 7, Concession 7, and Edwardsburg South of County Road number 22B, being Part 1 of Reference Plan 15R11366, in the geographic township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, County of Grenville, being part of PIN number 68143-01, be now read third time from the past signed and sealed, number 2018-20.
Good. Mr. Cook will be glad to see this one. Those in favor of third reading? Motion is carried. And so now 11J is the FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities Grant Agreement. Councilor Morel.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Barrett, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a grant agreement with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
And paperwork is worth more than money. Those in favor, please signify. It's got unanimous approval. Can proceed to third reading.
Okay, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a grant agreement with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2018-21.
Thank you you very much. Third reading, those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, so now I'm at item 12 on the agenda, which is the CAO's administrative update. So, I think what we'll do is, everybody's had a chance to review the administrative update. We'll start by asking the CAO to just highlight the update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am very pleased to report that we have a permanent road superintendent, or will have, starting April 23rd. As you know, Jim Guest has been acting as a contractor for us since Bruce Hader left us before Christmas, and doing an outstanding job. And Jim brings with him some significant skills. He is qualified as a certified engineering technologist, but also a drainage superintendent, although that's not part of his job description at the moment. And as you know, was the author of our roads needs study, very familiar with the township, very familiar with the roads, and getting very familiar with our staff and making great strides. So I'm very pleased that he will be joining us on a permanent basis.
But will there be a contract in place?
It's a standard employment contract that we use for all our staff, yeah, management staff. We've been busy still in the industrial park. The inquiries continue to come in. I think that we will see continued activity. The Greenergy presentation was very interesting last week. The Benson School situation, as you know, is ongoing. I wanted to highlight for council that in the March 5th correspondence package, there was a request for support for a resolution from the town of Essex suggesting that it's inappropriate for the province to charge municipalities for property that the taxpayers of this province have already paid for. And I think that's a resolution that's worth supporting. If I could get council's nod, I would, with respect, bring that forward.
Yes, I've asked for that one to come forward.
What else are we doing? Well, you know, the building department had a great start to the year with 3 new houses already. Giant Tiger is complete. They have their occupancy. I understand the assessors are coming out this week. Highlight that election 2018 will start appearing on our schedule of events. There is some candidate information sessions for those who may be considering running for council, would like a little bit more information on it. Those are free of charge and don't cost anything other than a little bit of staff time to put together. They are an effort by the county clerks group. Hard at work on our asset management. The funding agreement before you tonight will certainly help with that project. Ice is out in Spencerville. Will be taken out at the end of May in Cardinal, and at the moment, just to let you know, we are currently planning to keep the walking track open every morning through the week once the ice is out. That's in the work plan for this year. The last couple of projects under the Clean Water Works fund are being worked on at the wastewater and water plant department. Going along, starting to get going on our major tenders now that the budget has been finalized. And I should point out too that fire station number 2 has been subject to a designated substance survey, which you will recall looks for asbestos and good things like that. And I'm really happy to report that there was no issues identified in that building. The chief has been in discussions with a designer to come forward with a plan for either renovation or reconstruction of that facility, so I expect we'll see something on that fairly soon. And May the 2nd has been tentatively settled on, well, it's for sure a day for training for the emergency control group, and it looks like there may be a joint emergency exercise that same day in the afternoon, so that program is underway as well.
Any idea when that'll be finalized, whether the afternoon is required as well?
Well, it's being led by, the organization of that is being led by the Augusta CEMC, so we're sort of waiting on him firm that up for us. I imagine he'll wait until he can hear from most people as to whether or not that's gonna work for him, so. He's also waiting at the moment to hear back from the new representative from the ministry to make sure that his plan for the exercise is good. So hopefully in the next day or two.
Questions, Ken? Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, ma'am, for your report. Great news about the full-time manager in Public Works. That's great. Question about under facilities recreation. There's reference to the operator who was injured, and that incident was the catalyst for our helmet policy. Our helmet policy. I spoke to a few folks in the city of Ottawa, and they have had a helmet policy for quite some time, and do not use CSA approved helmets. They use snowboard helmets. All of their operators wear snowboard helmets in this particular facility, because the CSA helmets are only rated for one drop. You drop your helmet, you have to chuck it out and get a new one. Whereas the snowboard helmets, you can actually fall and hit your head, and you can reuse the helmet. So they profess that they take good care. This operator said he takes great care of his gear, but you shut your locker too quick, hit your helmet, now you need a new helmet before you can go on shift or borrow one from another operator. So I just wanted to pass that along as a possible best practice for Mr. Spencer to take a look at. I know that this is a super new policy, and maybe that's an outlier for those operators at that facility in the city of Ottawa, but I just thought it was very interesting because they must have gone through a lot of helmets before they arrived at that decision. So.
I find that interesting that there'd be two different standards. Okay, Councilor Morel.
Yes, through the chair. Don't read that I'm trying to micromanage the fire department or anything, but when I saw the substance issue and so forth, that just brought to mind the previous study that we had done about suits and cleaning them following post fires and so forth for safety of the firefighters, and cleaning room and a designated shower area and whatnot. And I saw an item similar to this on the newscast. Now, I'm not sure whether, I think it was Gananoque, it could be Napanee. It was on the Kingston News, and they were talking about a new change in format for firefighters to reduce the impact of and minimize the exposure of firefighters and families to contaminants. And what they were saying was, this, I think the new chief has got them doing this. Here's, and bear with me, it says, they used to go, they get the fire call and they'd be at home and they'd go from home to the fire or something. His rationale now in this news report was all report first to the station and finish there to minimize and alleviate first responder firefighter, their personal vehicle, and home families' exposure and contamination to post firefighting. His rationale also, I remember during that brief interview, was oftentimes people go to the site, in different vehicles and come in, and you gotta spend time coordinating and get things going. That if they went to the fire station first, it may have take a few minutes longer, longer, but you get everybody planning in place before they strike out. But also when they return, this problem of exposure is not left with the firefighter riding in his vehicle and then going home to the family with, I don't know if that makes sense or not, if I've explained it well enough for, to understand, but it just struck me as it sounded like they were having a change in format and process. I'm not a firefighter, I'm not the chief, but I'm just throwing that up for, it seemed to be a big news policy change.
I'm curious to know if the location was a rural type of location, because I know that in our particular township, as I understand it, the two departments react differently. In the case of Spencerville, call, the firefighters respond to the site of the fire. That's because they're so widely scattered throughout the township that becomes the kind of the central point. Whereas in Cardinal, at one time, and former Chief Dave Grant can correct me if I get wrong, too far wrong here, in Cardinal, where most of the firefighters were at one time employed by the local industry, it was actually faster for them to respond to the hall. And to my mind, the two departments operated differently because of the two different geographic situations. Now, maybe Mr. Grant would care to add to that in view of the information that Councillor Morel has brought forward. Hate to put you on the spot, but have I got the concept right?
Somewhat, yes, yes. Definitely, the preference always is to have an ability to respond to the station. Number one, you ensure your vehicles are going and you're more coordinated, but you know, logistically and physically, some of those items aren't. It's not functional if a call's in Hyman and the individual lives on Hyman Road for them to respond to the Spencerville station.
Right, okay.
Right.
Okay,
So-
I just,
But I'm quite sure that the chief is working on those items to try to maximize that.
I think the critical thing is response time at the site, and I think we can leave it to the chief to determine what's the best way to achieve optimum response times at the site. That I think we although maybe what this speaker that you're referring to is suggesting that we should be somehow reordering the priority so that instead of the priority being response time at the site, the response time the priority item becomes the safety of the firefighter and his family. I mean, I guess those are the two things that are in play here. But we've had I'm sure that having heard the discussion, the CAO will discuss it with the chief. Further comments from the report? I just have a couple. With the operations public works side of it on page 2, did we tag on to any of the county programs this year, line painting or anything like that? I'm thinking of weed spraying, etc. Did we tag on to county programs this year?
Yes, where it was appropriate, we did.
Yes. Can you tell me which ones we tagged on to?
Well, roadside spraying, crack sealing, and as of right now, I don't believe the line painting is out. But we typically like to do that in the fall.
Okay. Because I know we just approved the line painting one at county. I'm to the CAO now on page 3, where we're talking about the Prescott wastewater treatment plant. We've submitted our position on costs of the arbitration, and the town of Prescott was to have submitted theirs by March the 23rd. Was that the extended deadline, March the 23rd?
It was, yeah.
And do you know if they made that deadline?
I haven't heard a thing.
Okay, now, my understanding is now that we have then until March the 30th to respond to their response.
That's correct.
Okay, so, I mean, the time is running to the 30th, I believe, is
Friday.
and Friday's a holiday.
Yeah, I'm sure the arbitrator was looking at his Easter holiday calendar when he set that date, but certainly I'll double check with our solicitor tomorrow.
Okay, now, I see that on the next item, the County Road 2 drain, and that's the drain that was petitioned by the United Counties, and there will be an on-site meeting likely in April or May, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be present at that if I could just be kept aware of the date.
Certainly, I think council generally gets invited to those on-site meetings as part of the act.
Okay, and I think that was the extent of my questions. So the chair is now prepared to accept the motion to approve the CAO's administrative update. Councillor Barrett.
Moved by myself, signed by Councillor Brown. The municipal council receives the CAO's administrative report as
Those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And so now I'm at item 13, which is council inquiries or notices of motion. Anything coming forward from that?
Nothing here.
Okay, I'm at item number 14, which is the mayor's report. Just a couple of things. I had the report written, obviously left it on the side of the desk, but we do that frequently these days. So tomorrow morning is the Catholic School Board of Eastern Ontario's Bravo Breakfast in Brockville, St. Mary's School. I'll attend that at 7:30. Then I have an interest from some folks from Habitat for Humanity, and they want to do something, they tell me, in Cardinal. Now, I'll just indicate to council that during the period of time that I've been on council since 2006, Habitat for Humanity has approached council at least 3 times that I'm aware of, looking for projects in our township, and seem to be focused on Cardinal. And we've never, ever been able to come up with a suitable location. Now, I spent a few minutes with the CAO today, just driving around the town, the village. We really don't have any owned property that's owned by the township that I can offer them. But the CAO and I today did look at about 3 properties that are under private ownership that I will show them tomorrow to see if I can get them interested in making some sort of arrangements with private individuals. So that's the gist of my report for tonight, and I'm looking for a motion to receive the mayor's report. Councilor Morel.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Barrett that municipal council receives the mayor's report as presented.
And those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And now I'm at item number 15 on the agenda, which is the question period. Looking for questions from the gallery. Mr. Davis.
In regards to last meeting, the Benson School first and second reading, the lawyer was supposed to get back in regards to whether you could present the offer without it passing, without it passing third reading. Did the lawyer get back to you?
Yes, I'll just ask the CEO to outline that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The solicitor did get back to us the next day. The resolution as it stood to begin the negotiation stands, that if and when a final position was developed, that would have to be entered into by bylaw. So in other words, the resolution to allow the negotiation to commence is fine. The final agreement must be adopted by bylaw.
So it will go through a first and second and a third reading.
Yeah, the confirmation bylaw is, not critical in that.
Any other questions from the?
I'll just make a comment. I listened to the same thing that Councillor Morel did, and my husband was on the fire department for over 20-some years, and he remarked about the thing about going to the fire hall too, and being more united when you did that, and because he was in the Cardinal Fire Department in the village, then that is more what they did, was at that point in time. I have a question though about the fire hall. Is there been any more talk about adding on to this one in Cardinal, or changing it and going into, or tearing it down?
Well, the CAO reported on that, and basically we've had an initial assessment done of the building, and that initial, by an engineering firm, I believe it was Eastern Engineering in Brockville. And so we've received that initial report from the engineering firm. Now, that report has been received by council and it's been turned over to the chief. And as the CAO reported, the chief now is in discussions with an architect to determine what is the best way to get or salvage, I guess is the best way to put it. What's the best way to salvage maximum value from the existing asset, or is the existing asset at such a point that it needs to be replaced? So that's a question which really hinges around the current building codes and how far the existing building is out of tune with the building codes and the immediate use. and I can't judge where that's gonna go. We'll have to wait till we get the report from the architect. Is that the idea?
Yeah, the chief will bring something forward.
What always worries me in these kinds of situations is that, you know, you can look at a building two ways, and how, is it better
Seems to be the fad, doesn't it, eh?
well,
Just tear them down, they're 35 years old, let's tear them all down. It's like the rinks.
I understand the concerns.
Yeah.
The same concern myself.
Yeah. Anyway,
Uh,
that's the end of my questions.
Any other questions from the audience here tonight? Hearing none, I'm about to proceed to item number 16. And we do have a closed session tonight. I asked Councillor Smale to bring forward the motion to go into closed session.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Barrett. The municipal council proceeds into closed session at 7:52 p.m. in order to address the matter pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, municipal or local board purposes, specifically Benson.
Benson School again. Okay, going into closed session at 7:52. Those in favor? Motion is carried. We'll have just a 10-minute break.
Seconded by Councilor Barrett. The closed meeting is now adjourned and the open meeting of the municipal council is now resumed at 8 p.m.
Thank you very much. Those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. So, reporting out from the closed session, I'll indicate that council received from the CAO a report on the response to our offer to purchase Benson School. And as a result of the response, there's a motion before council looking for a mover and a seconder. Councilor Morel, you're moving? And,
I have it moved,
Oh, okay.
Councilor Morel is the seconder.
okay, go ahead.
It's moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Morel. The municipal council authorizes the mayor and CAO clerk to notify the Upper Canada District School Board that the Township of Edmundsburg Cardinal is withdrawing from the negotiations for the purchase of 4005 James Street, Benson.
Very good. Further discussion, if any? Those in favor? Motion is vote.
No, not voting in favor.
Beg pardon?
No, I'm not voting in favor. We still have the Benson committee meeting tomorrow night, and would like to see what they come forward with.
Okay, so you're speaking against the motion. Okay, so does that change anybody's mind? No? Go ahead.
Through Mr. Mayor, is there any proposed motions from Councilor Smale's committee?
Not at this moment. I'm gonna play it by ear to see what the committee, after they hear, I would like to give Mr. Parent a full open chance to address the committee and go from there.
Through Mr. Mayor, to staff or to you, is there a financial implication for us not withdrawing from the negotiation?
The CAO will respond to that.
I don't believe so. To answer the question directly, it's just simply that if at this point the municipality were to back out of the negotiation, it leaves Mr. Parent free to make his proposal direct to the school board. And we don't need to be a party to that. It will go to open market, and the same regulation applies to public purchase of that property as it did when we were considering an offer, that they will only accept fair market value. Now, we've heard from Mr. Parent that he was prepared to offer $75,000. That's far less than $175,000. I think we should leave it to him to have those discussions with the school board.
I guess the factor that influences me was that the only reason that we had anything to do with the offer in the first place was that we knew that the parties that we were dealing with had the financial ability to deal with the situation in its entirety by demolishing the building. And we had pretty much, I would thought, firm commitment of council that there were to be no taxpayers' dollars attached to this issue. And what bothers me about we're still in the, oh no, we're not in the closed session anymore. So I have to be careful what I'm saying here. So I'll just stop right there. But suffice it to say that I wouldn't be prepared to put the township signature on another offer to purchase coming forward from another party unless I had full and complete understanding of their financial qualifications to handle the full extent of the problem. If we're still committed that there will be no taxpayers' dollars involved.
Mr. Mayor, the CAO mentioned mentioned two figures in her response to my question. Are both of those the proposed amount offered by Mr. Parent and the other figure from the school board, are those both public information?
Certainly Mr. Parents is,
Okay.
I have to say that that's not the case with the school one.
Okay.
So we've only seen that in closed session.
Okay.
Okay, so just to clarify, in other words, this offer to purchase, this offer to purchase plus the counter offer that we've got, they're confidential documents. And as confidential documents, they don't get released to anybody. Is that correct?
I would have to suggest that it would be subject to an FOI request at this point.
That's the way I would take it. So how much of this information can be released at the CDC, or at the Benson school meeting? I think we really should get a box around what can be released and what can't be.
My only thing is I would like to give Mr. Parent the option to, because a lot of this is perception, make sure that he has the option to present his case to the ad hoc committee and go from there. And just take out this school board offer and let the committee make their recommendation.
Well, I mean, the point is that at the Benson school meeting, we're in public here right now. At the Benson school meeting, it at least has to be acknowledged that the offer was rejected by the school board, who responded with a counter offer, which was rejected by the township. That much, I think, can be made public. So there was an offer, rejected, counter offer in return, rejected by our council. And to my way of thinking, that clears the deck. Well, we have to remember that we're still in a 30-day negotiating period until we notify the school board that we're finished negotiations, right? So until we pass this motion, the school board really is bound by the legislation, which confines them to a 30-day period until we give up, because we're the only responders at that level. So until we pass this motion, Mr. Parent really hasn't, well, I mean, he can make an offer to the school board at any time, but they can't entertain his offer, if I can put it that way. Go ahead.
So, your question, Mr. Mayor, after Councillor Smale's first comment was if it changes anyone's mind. And what I would say is that at our last, at the special meeting, no, excuse me, at the committee meeting following our special meeting last week, the suggestion to Mr. Parent was that if he wanted to make a formal offer to the municipality, that that would be heard. As there's no financial implication in us not walking away from the negotiating process at this time, and there is a committee meeting scheduled for this week on the subject of Benson, and I'll support Councillor Smale in her not supporting this motion.
Well, I think I'd like to go back, because I don't think that Mr. Parent was ever encouraged to make an offer to the township. I think he was encouraged to make an offer directly to the school board. I can have misread that situation, but my understanding is that
He's asking for the township's first right to purchase.
Yeah, well, you heard the advice from the lawyer. You heard that advice.
So, and final, if I can, the last thing for me, Mr. Mayor, is that I would say that I am not inclined to be in the business of granting those, I was not in favor of this initial negotiating position, and I don't see an outcome from the meeting that would see me in favor of that. However, I'll let that process unfold at no cost to us, and if this offer expires in 2.5 weeks' time, then that's fine.
Well, I'm stuck in an awkward position now because I've got a motion in front of me, moved and seconded, voted on and declared carried. So how do I deal with that?
Would require a motion to reconsider.
Okay, so what are the requirements of a motion to reconsider?
I just want clarification, Councilor Perry, like you were wanting, I think, at the beginning, still the free market, we need to decide back.
Right.
Well, by us
Oh,
getting
sorry.
out, by us getting out, free market now is a lot more of a chance as not for Mr. Perry or Mr. B or something, developer or,
Well, go ahead.
And through the mayor, yes, yes. However, we entered into this process, and I regret not having heard Councillor Smale's objection before having voted on it, because I would like the opportunity for the process to have that for every side to have had the opportunity to have been included. And as I said, I don't see an outcome from that meeting that would have me support that effort. But as we already entered into the process with the committee's first recommendation, I would just want to see it through with this third party as well, and irrespective of it.
But the process is not comparable. That's the problem. I mean, there's no possible way that, I mean, you say yourself, you don't see how there's any possibility of what takes place on Wednesday night can come back through council. And it can't. I mean, it just plain can't, because we don't have comparable parties here. So, to my way of thinking, the easiest way to deal with this is let this motion pass. It's already been declared passed. Councillor Smale had ample opportunity in the closed session to deal with it, and it wasn't until after I called the question that she raised her objection, which is procedurally, it's very awkward. I'm trying to
Allowed
allow.
to object to a question that's been called.
Beg your pardon?
I'm allowed to object to the question that's been called.
You're allowed to object to it, but you've got to declare before the chair declares the motion carried. Can't wait till after the chair declares the motion carried to say I'm voting against it. I mean, I looked both ways, and I asked you how you're gonna vote. You said you're gonna vote against it. Fair enough. You vote against it. That's the end of it. The vote is 3-1. I mean, I'm allowing the discussion to go on, but it's an awkward situation. It's procedurally, it's not correct. But besides from the procedural issue is the whole substance of the issue. So I don't know how you want to, I'm just, hang on one second. I need a minute to think here, and I think we all should be thinking here. First of all, let's go to the procedural bylaw. What is the requirement of a motion to reconsider?
It may be reconsidered if during the council inquiries notice the motion portion of the meeting at which it was passed, of course, obviously that this procedural bylaw does not contemplate reconsidering a motion after council inquiries or notice of motion. So First of all, that's difficult. Second of all, the member who voted on the resolution has to give notice that he or she will introduce a motion for reconsideration at the first regular meeting held thereafter. So you really can't even reconsider the motion until next month, according to the procedural bylaw. And
So,
if I may, Mr. Mayor, I don't think anyone's being excluded in this situation. I think the Benson ad hoc committee can certainly hear Mr. Parent's presentation and support him if they wish to. The question is, what then would be the outcome if Mr. Parent's presentation was well received and the ad hoc committee passed a recommendation to council, that council proceed with purchasing the school in order to support Mr. Parent's proposal? And
where would that go?
where would that go?
Number
And-
one,
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I just don't see an outcome to that where it would be not my recommendation to support that notion. I think that Mr. Parent has ample opportunity to go to the school board directly, purchase the property for whatever purpose he needs it for, without having to have that right of first refusal. It doesn't make sense to me.
that's, my worry is, I mean, to me, that's the only thing that can happen. He submits his offer direct. He doesn't need us, he doesn't require us, and for us to assist him in any way puts taxpayers' dollars at risk, period. And I'd say that in public,
Can I just,
you know.
may I
Go
just-
ahead.
No
may I just-
different than us negotiating with the other two.
Oh, world of difference, world of
In your
difference.
opinion.
May I just?
No, understand, we're dealing with public companies here that have annual financial statements that are available for review. I mean, they're publicly traded companies. This gentleman represents, actually, we don't know what he represents, because his campground is owned by a numbered company, but he doesn't introduce himself as an officer of the company. He introduces himself as the operating officer of the campground, or the operating person of the campground. That's not an officer of the corporation. We don't even know, when he stands up in front of us, if he is speaking on behalf of the numbered company. We don't know that, because he didn't introduce himself as the president, or the secretary, or the treasurer of the numbered company. He can only speak on behalf of that company if he's an officer of the company. He didn't do that. Nor did he say that he's been appointed an agent of that company. So he has no status.
Public perception.
Public perception is fine, but it doesn't pay the bills when things go wrong.
No,
The
no,
taxpayers
it's
pay the
public-
bills.
It's public perception that, and this is where I'm hung up on this, it's public perception that the council has put more emphasis on one business over another.
Absolutely. And
well,
I'm glad.
I'm not willing to be a part of that public perception.
Well, I
So
mean.
that's where I'm standing.
Yes, and that's fair enough, and you're quite entitled to that
I
position.
just don't think that that's a fair perception for.
And you're quite entitled to
so-
think that.
And that's where I'm standing.
Okay, and you're quite entitled to say that, but that doesn't change the fact of the procedural problem that we've got in front of us here,
May I?
where you withheld that comment until after the vote. That's where the problem comes. You can't suck and blow at the same time here. If you're gonna be against something, you have to be against it and speak against it. Everybody had an opportunity to speak to the motion.
Call for orders of the day. Can we call the next question, Mr. Mayor?
Well, the next question actually is the confirmation bylaw. And, yes, I'm prepared to call the confirmation bylaw if the council's prepared to deal with it.
Mr. Mayor, may I just throw this out? I'm not, I know there's a familiar, we had the right, as a municipality of province, the coterminous board, and then we municipalities had our kick at the can to purchase now that you say that we're the only ones that actually took part in it or made an offer at this level, so once we waive this, we're out of the picture. Can we let them know immediately, or does that waive, does that just say, we're not interested, we're not going any further on this as a municipality? You can waive your 30-day, whatever it is, and that can expedite things for Mr. Parent to make his own private bid more quickly. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I thought that
Well,
might be
that was the
you know,
intent, that was the intent of the motion.
Okay, and then he can, yeah, if we're out, he's get his first dibs in there, and he can go, you know, and see what the future holds type thing. As a private individual, and then if he's first in line, he might, and what he offers, who knows? So,
The
anyway.
board has to go through, just so
They've got to
everybody
go through
realizes, they have to go through a process now.
Yes,
And I don't know, maybe you can tell us if you've been watching what the next step in the process is, but I think the next step in the process where they offer it for sale to the public, they're obligated to offer it for sale for a certain period of time and to receive offers over that period of time, and what they do with the offers that they receive is up to them. You know, I mean, but I'm assuming that there must be some minimum period of time that they have to allow. Can you confirm or deny that?
I
No.
haven't checked into it.
No, okay. All right, so going back to your question, you know, orders of the day, I'm prepared to call the motion on the confirmatory bylaw. Councilor Morel has it, but I have to make sure before I call it that council's prepared to deal with it, and I'm gonna challenge the chair in that ruling. Okay, so I don't understand Councilor Smale's objections, but the motion is on the floor, the motion stands, the motion's been declared carried. I haven't signed it, so I'm about to sign it. Okay, and then we're gonna move on. All right, so the motion now is carried and it is signed, it's carried. So now I'm calling for the motion to deal with the confirmatory bylaw. Councilor Morel.
moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, that the move be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, those in favor of first and second reading? Motion is carried unanimously to proceed to third reading.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, that a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution be now read a third time, finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2018-22.
Thank you very much. Third reading, those in favor? Motion is carried. And so now the chair is looking for the motion to adjourn.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Barrett, that municipal council does now adjourn at 8:24.
Thank you very much. Those in favor of the motion to adjourn, motion is carried.